On a quiet afternoon in Alexandria, Virginia, the backyard of a historic home fills with laughter, blue balloons, and promises of joy. It's Noah's third birthday, and everyone's celebrating the picture of a perfect family. Everyone except Rachel Whitmore. At 28, she smiles in silence, a practiced, measured smile. The kind you wear when peace has to be protected. Her mother, Diane, approaches with teary eyes. "You built a beautiful family, Rachel." Rachel doesn't answer right away. She walks to her bag, takes out a folder, hands it over. Inside, anonymous threats, routine surveillance, mentions of her son, his school, even the party. Because although she left him, her ex-husband never truly left her. He traded fists for digital whispers, control for strategy. This isn't just a story about domestic violence. It's about the invisible cost of survival. Keep watching to see what happens when the truth finally breaks through the silence, and follow the channel for more stories that prove strength doesn't always look loud. Chapter 1. Beneath the Streamers. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the historic Alexandria backyard, where blue and white streamers twisted in the gentle Virginia breeze. Rachel Whitmore stood on the edge of the patio, watching as her 3-year-old son Noah chased bubbles with determined giggles, his dark curls bouncing with each step. She adjusted the collar of her cream-colored blouse, an unconscious habit that had lingered from years of making herself presentable, perfect, unnoticeable. "He has your energy," said Ethan, appearing at her side with 2 lemonade glasses. Her husband of 2 years slid his arm around her waist, his presence steady and warm, like always. As a child therapist, Ethan carried a natural gentleness that had initially made Rachel wary. Kindness had once been a prelude to control in her experience, but now felt like the foundation she'd rebuilt her life upon. Rachel accepted the drink with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "And your patience, thankfully." She took a sip, her gaze drifting to the entrance gate for the 5th time in 20 minutes. "She'll be here," Ethan assured, following her line of sight. "Your mom texted that she was looking for parking." Rachel nodded, though the knot in her stomach tightened. 5 years had passed since she'd fled her first marriage to Kyle Bennett, respected police officer, community volunteer, and behind closed doors, a man whose insecurities manifested as meticulous control over every aspect of Rachel's existence. 5 years since she'd shown up at her mother's doorstep with bruises she could no longer explain away as clumsiness, only to hear, "He's a good man, Rachel. What did you do to provoke him this time?" The memory still burned. Diane Whitmore had always chosen comfort over truth, appearances over reality. Today would be the first time she'd meet Noah, the grandson born after Rachel had rebuilt her life across the country and returned only when she felt safe, when Kyle had finally transferred to a precinct in California. "Grandma's here," Ethan called out, waving toward the gate where a slender woman in her 60s stood uncertainly, clutching a large gift bag. Noah paused his bubble chase, suddenly shy as he tucked himself behind Rachel's legs. She placed a protective hand on his shoulder, steadying herself as much as him. Diane approached with careful steps, her gaze taking in the modest but charming historic home, the birthday decorations, the small gathering of neighborhood families, a life she knew nothing about. "Rachel," she said, her voice catching slightly. "You look wonderful." Rachel accepted her mother's awkward hug, the familiar scent of Chanel No. 5 triggering a cascade of mixed emotions. "Mom, this is Ethan," she said, stepping back. "And this," she gently guided Noah forward,
is Noah." Diane knelt down, eye level with the boy. "Hello, Noah. I'm your grandma. I've waited a very long time to meet you." Noah regarded her with solemn brown eyes, eyes that reminded Rachel of her own reflection. "I'm 3, he declared, holding up the correct number of fingers. "Yes, you are. That's why I brought you this." Diane offered the gift bag, which Noah accepted with newfound interest. As Ethan guided Noah to the present table, promising he could open it later with the others, Diane turned to Rachel with tears forming in the corners of her eyes. "You built a beautiful family, Rachel." The words hung in the air between them. 5 simple words that somehow compressed years of dismissal, disbelief, and distance. Rachel held her mother's gaze, feeling the weight of a decision she'd made that morning. Without a word, she walked to the porch table where her handbag sat, retrieving a manila folder before returning. "You never asked what it cost me to get here," she said quietly, handing the folder to her mother. Confusion crossed Diane's face as she opened it. Inside were printed screenshots, messages sent through various platforms over the past 6 months. Nice preschool pic for Noah. The blue door makes it easy to spot at 3:15.
Ethan works late on Tuesdays. You still lock the bathroom window when you shower alone? Birthday party planning? I know a perfect clown. I've been watching long enough. Diane's hand trembled slightly as she flipped through the pages. Is Kyle doing this? I can't prove it, Rachel replied, her voice steady despite the familiar fear churning beneath her composed exterior. The accounts are always new, always deleted after. The police say there's not enough to act on, just like they said before. Her mother's face had drained of color. Why didn't you tell me? Rachel's laugh held no humor. The same reason I didn't tell you when he started tracking my mileage, or when he installed cameras inside our house, or when he held my wrist so tight it fractured while explaining why I shouldn't wear a certain dress. She took back the folder. You praised the surface. Now you've seen what's underneath. Across the yard, Noah's laughter rang out as Ethan helped him swing at a piñata, the sound bright against the heaviness of the moment. I thought I'd left it all behind, Rachel continued, her voice softening as she watched her son. But some threats don't disappear just because you've built something new. They just change form. Diane reached for Rachel's hand, her fingers cool against Rachel's warm skin. I should have believed you. The simplicity of the admission, 5 years too late, made Rachel's throat tighten. I need you to believe me now, because whatever happens next, I have to protect them, even if no one else thinks there's danger. The birthday song began across the yard, Noah clapping delightedly as Ethan carried out a cake shaped like a dinosaur, 3 candles glowing atop it. Rachel turned toward the celebration, her smile returning for her son's benefit. We should join them, she said, her mask of calm sliding back into place with practiced ease. As they walked toward the gathering, Diane whispered, What can I do? Rachel's answer was simple. Stay, watch, listen. There's more to this story than I've told you. In the fading golden light, surrounded by birthday wishes and childhood joy, Rachel's eyes continued their careful scan of the yard perimeter, a habit born of necessity, not paranoia. Because sometimes the greatest threats weren't the ones in messages, but the ones hiding in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge from the shadows. If this story of family secrets and quiet courage speaks to you, subscribe to our channel for the next chapter, where Rachel reveals the unexpected ally who's been helping her track the threats and the discovery that changes everything. Some battles can't be fought alone, and some truths require more than one voice to be heard. Join us next week as we continue Rachel's journey toward reclaiming her power and protecting what matters most.
Chapter 2: Walls and Witnesses.
The evening after Noah's birthday party settled over the Whitmore Carson household like a weighted blanket, heavy with unspoken tensions, yet somehow providing a strange comfort in its pressure. Rachel stood at the kitchen sink, methodically washing cake frosting from plates, while Ethan put Noah to bed upstairs. Through the window, she could see her mother sitting alone on the patio, illuminated by the string lights that still hung from the celebration, her face cast in contemplative shadows. "He's asking for you," Ethan said, entering the kitchen with Noah's dinosaur t-shirt draped over his shoulder. Something about needing to check his closet for sneaky things. Rachel's hands stilled in the soapy water. "That's new." "Kids and their evolving fears," Ethan replied, with the casual expertise of someone who counseled children through their anxieties every day. Perfectly normal developmental stage. But Rachel knew better. Noah had never feared monsters or closet-dwelling creatures before. She dried her hands quickly and headed upstairs, each step measured and deliberate. Noah's room was a sanctuary of dinosaurs and space shuttles, nightlights casting gentle blue shadows across his walls. He sat up in bed, clutching his favorite Triceratops plush, eyes wide with an alertness that shouldn't belong on a 3-year-old's face. "Hey, buddy," Rachel said softly, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Dad says you need a closet check?" Noah nodded solemnly. "For the picture man." Rachel felt her blood cool. The picture man? He saw him taking pictures of our house. Like this. Noah held his hands up in a rectangle shape, mimicking someone holding a camera or phone. Through the trees. With practiced calm that masked her internal alarm, Rachel smoothed his curls back from his forehead. "When did you see this person, sweetie?" "Today, during my party, when I was hiding from Trevor because he was being mean." I remembered. Noah had disappeared for a few minutes during a game of tag, eventually found crouched behind the large oak tree at the far corner of their yard. I'd assumed he was just caught up in the game. "You know what?" she said, keeping her voice light. "I'll check not just your closet, but the whole house. And tomorrow, we'll talk about what to do if you ever see someone taking pictures again, okay?" Noah nodded, already looking relieved as Rachel made a show of inspecting his closet, looking under the bed and checking behind the curtains. Once he was settled, Dinosaur tucked securely under his arm, she kissed his forehead and left the door slightly ajar, the hallway light casting a reassuring glow into the room. Instead of returning downstairs immediately, Rachel entered the spare bedroom that faced the front of the house. In the darkened room, she peered through the blinds toward the street, empty except for parked cars and gentle pools of light from Victorian-style lampposts. The ancient oak trees that lined their historic neighborhood provided aesthetic beauty and summer shade, but also countless shadows and hiding spots. When she finally returned to the kitchen, Ethan had finished the dishes and was leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, immediately reading the tension in her posture. "What's wrong?" "Noah says he saw someone photographing the house during the party. A picture man in the trees." Ethan's easy demeanor shifted, shoulders squaring as he set his phone down. "You think it's connected to the messages?" "What else would it be?" Rachel crossed to the refrigerator, retrieved a bottle of water, but didn't open it, just held it, something solid to grip. "I should call Detective Morales again." "Rachel," Ethan said gently, "the last 3 times..." "I know what happened the last 3 times," she cut in, then immediately softened her tone. "I'm sorry, it's just, they keep saying the same thing, that without clear threats or evidence of who's sending the messages, there's nothing they can do." Ethan closed the distance between them, his hands coming to rest on her shoulders. "We could move. Start fresh somewhere else." Rachel shook her head. And then what? Wait for the messages to start again? Keep running every few years? I did that already. I'm not uprooting Noah's life because the system won't protect us. The patio door slid open as Diane stepped inside, her presence a reminder of the day's revelations. She'd insisted on staying in their guest room tonight rather than at her hotel, her normally perfect composure visibly shaken by what she'd learned. "Is everything okay?" she asked, glancing between them. Rachel hesitated, then decided truth was the policy now. "Noah says he saw someone taking pictures of our house during the party. A picture man in the trees." Diane's hand went to her throat, a gesture so familiar it momentarily transported Rachel back to childhood, her mother's reflexive reaction to disturbing news. "Have you told the police?" Diane asked. "Mom, they won't—" "You don't know that. Not anymore. Not with me as a witness now, too." The statement hung in the air, its implications slowly settling. For the first time in years, Rachel felt the faintest spark of what might be hope, or at least not solitude in her vigilance. "There's something else you should know," Rachel said after a moment. She walked to the hallway closet, retrieving a laptop from the top shelf. Setting it on the kitchen island, she opened it to reveal a screen divided into quadrants, each showing a different angle of their property: the front porch, the backyard, the side gate, the street view. Ethan moved closer, concern etched across his features. "When did you install these?" 3 months ago, after the message about Noah's preschool." Rachel's fingers moved across the keyboard, pulling up archived footage. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to scare you, but I needed evidence. Something concrete if he ever—" She stopped herself, unwilling to voice her deepest fear. "If Pyle ever showed up," Diane finished for her. The name spoken aloud made the kitchen feel suddenly smaller. Rachel nodded, then continued navigating through files until she found what she was looking for. Footage from earlier that day zoomed in on the tree line at the end of their property. The image quality wasn't perfect, but clear enough to show a figure partially obscured by foliage, something raised to their face pointed toward the birthday gathering. "Noah was right," Ethan whispered, leaning closer to the screen. Rachel continued to the next clip, the same figure moving quickly away as Noah approached the tree, then disappearing beyond the camera's range. "This is it," Diane said with unexpected conviction. "This is what the police need to see." "It's not clear enough to identify anyone," Rachel countered, the familiar weight of futility pressing down on her. "But it corroborates Noah's account and the messages, and I'm not without connections in this town, Rachel. Your father may be gone, but his name still means something at the precinct." Rachel stiffened. Her father, a former judge, had passed away while she was still married to Kyle, never knowing what his son-in-law was capable of behind closed doors. "What connections?" Ethan asked, his therapist intuition clearly sensing there was more to this statement. Diane squared her shoulders slightly. "Martin Fraser is the new police captain. He and your father were close friends. I had lunch with him just last month. That's partly why I finally worked up the courage to visit. I wanted to see if there was anything concerning I should know about." Rachel stared at her mother, processing this new information. "You've been checking up on me?" "Not in the way you think. I just wanted to know if you were truly safe here. After everything that happened—" She paused, visibly struggling with her next words. "After I failed you so badly, I needed to know you were okay." The admission hung between them, imperfect but honest. "Martin will take this seriously, especially with my statement about the threats." Rachel felt Ethan's hand find hers under the counter, a silent question in his touch. She gave a small nod. "We'll go first thing tomorrow," she decided. "All of us." Later that night, after Diane had retired to the guest room, Rachel stood in Noah's doorway, watching his peaceful sleep. Ethan came up beside her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "You know what this means," he said quietly. "If we file an official report with evidence, restraining order or not, Kyle will know exactly where we are." Rachel nodded, her gaze never leaving her son. "He already does. The difference is, now we won't be facing him alone." She turned into Ethan's embrace, allowing herself to absorb his strength for a moment. Tomorrow would bring a confrontation 5 years in the making, not just with the system that had failed her, but with her own past. For the first time, she wouldn't be fighting that battle in isolation. As they walked to their bedroom, Rachel's phone vibrated with a new message notification. Her heart stuttered as she opened it. "Family reunion tomorrow? Don't forget to tell them about the lies, about the fire, about what really happened that night." She stared at the screen, the words blurring slightly as her mind raced back to the night she'd finally escaped, the night that had changed everything, the night that held the one truth she hadn't shared with anyone, not Ethan, not her mother, not even the police. Because some secrets weren't just kept out of fear, some were kept because the truth was far more dangerous than silence. Chapter 3. What Ashes Reveal. The Alexandria Police Department stood like a modern fortress among the colonial architecture of the historic district, all glass and steel, intentionally imposing. Rachel sat rigidly in a chair that had been designed for brief, uncomfortable waiting, not the 2 hours they had already spent there. Beside her, Ethan maintained a practiced calm, occasionally checking on Noah, who was contentedly drawing at a small table in the corner of the waiting room under Diane's watchful eye. Captain Martin Fraser had initially received them with professional courtesy that warmed considerably upon seeing Diane. Now, Rachel's evidence, the threatening messages, the security footage, Noah's account, was being reviewed by both Fraser and Detective Morales, who had handled Rachel's previous reports with bureaucratic detachment. The door to the conference room finally opened, and Captain Fraser emerged, his silver hair and commanding presence drawing immediate attention. "Mrs. Whitmore, if you could join us," he said, addressing Diane first, a small detail that didn't escape Rachel's notice, old habits of deference to her father's colleague rather than to the actual victim. Inside the conference room, Detective Morales sat with Rachel's laptop open in front of her, the security footage paused on the clearest frame of the figure by the trees. Her expression was carefully neutral, but Rachel had grown adept at reading micro-expressions during her years with Kyle, a survival skill, and saw the shift from skepticism to reluctant consideration.
"Please sit," Captain Fraser gestured. Rachel and Diane took seats across from Morales, while Fraser remained standing, command postured intact. "I've reviewed your case history, Mrs. Carson. I see you filed 3 previous reports about threatening communications." "That's correct," Rachel replied, keeping her voice steady. "Each time I was told there wasn't enough evidence to pursue an investigation, as the messages didn't contain explicit threats of violence and couldn't be definitively linked to my ex-husband." Fraser nodded, his expression grave. "The difficulty with cases like yours is establishing a clear pattern of harassment when digital communications are designed to be untraceable. However," he gestured toward the laptop, "physical surveillance changes the equation significantly." "So, you believe me now?" Rachel couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Morales cleared her throat. "Mrs. Carson, it's not that we didn't believe you. Without actionable evidence, my daughter's concerns should have been taken seriously from the beginning," Diane interrupted, her voice carrying the practiced authority of a judge's wife. "Kyle Bennett is a police officer. That complicated matters, didn't it?" The uncomfortable silence that followed confirmed what Rachel had long suspected. The thin blue line had protected one of their own, even after she'd finally gathered the courage to report the abuse. "We're taking this seriously now," Fraser assured them, though his gaze lingered more on Diane than Rachel. "I've already spoken with the Berkeley Police Department in California, where Officer Bennett is currently stationed. They've confirmed he took leave time that coincides with the dates of several of these messages, including your son's birthday." Rachel felt a cold wave wash through her. "He's been here, in Alexandria?" "We can't confirm that yet," Morales clarified quickly, "only that he wasn't on duty in California during those periods." Rachel's hands clenched in her lap. "What happens now?" "We'll petition for an emergency protective order today, and we'll assign additional patrols to your neighborhood. Detective Morales will be your point of contact for the investigation moving forward." "And when he violates the order," Rachel asked, with the question carrying the weight of her experience. "Because he will. A piece of paper won't stop him." Fraser's expression softened slightly. "Mrs. Carson, I understand your concern, but with your mother's statement, the security footage, and now a documented pattern, we have far more to work with than before." "There's something else," Rachel said, her decision crystallizing in that moment. She pulled her phone from her purse and opened the most recent message. "I received this last night." Morales took the phone, reading aloud. "Family reunion tomorrow? Don't forget to tell them about the lies, about the fire, about what really happened that night." She looked up sharply. "What fire is this referring to?" Rachel took a deep breath, feeling Diane's questioning gaze on her. "The night I left Kyle, there was a fire at her house in Fairfax. The official report ruled it an electrical fault, but what?" Fraser prompted when she hesitated. "Kyle always said if I ever tried to leave, he'd rather see everything burn than let me go." Rachel met his gaze directly. "The fire started in our bedroom, 30 minutes after I walked out the door with nothing but my purse. He wasn't home, supposedly working a night shift. The fire department found accelerant traces, but without evidence of who used it, the investigation stalled." Diane's intake of breath was audible. "You never told me about a fire. You never gave me the chance. You were too busy telling me to go back to him." The weight of that truth settled heavily between them. "There's one more thing you should know," Rachel continued, her voice gaining strength. "I've been working with a victims advocate group for the past year. There are 5 other women who've come forward with similar experiences with Kyle. Controlling behavior, escalating to physical abuse, then harassment after they left. None had enough evidence individually for charges, but together," she reached into her bag and extracted a sealed envelope, sliding it across the table. "Together, there's a pattern that can't be ignored." Fraser's eyebrows rose as he opened the envelope and began reviewing its contents. Morales leaned over to look, her professional demeanor cracking slightly as she processed what she was seeing. "How did you compile all this?" Morales asked. "I learned from my mistakes. I kept everything, and so did they." The meeting extended another hour as Rachel detailed the network of survivors she'd connected with, women who had dated or married Kyle before and after her, each with their own story of escalating control and violence, each silenced by his badge and the system designed to protect it. By the time they emerged from the conference room, Ethan had taken Noah outside for fresh air. Diane waited alone, rising immediately as Rachel approached. "They're opening a full investigation," Rachel told her mother, the words still feeling surreal. "Not just into the threats, but into Kyle's history of abuse. Captain Fraser is contacting the Berkeley department to place him on administrative leave pending investigation." Diane's eyes filled with tears. "Rachel, I'm so sorry. For everything. For not believing you, for—" "I know," Rachel interrupted gently. "But right now I need you to be strong. This isn't over." As they walked outside to join Ethan and Noah, the Virginia summer sun beat down with unrelenting brightness. Rachel squinted against the light, simultaneously symbolizing hope and exposure, the double-edged sword of finally being seen and heard. Ethan looked up from where he was helping Noah count the steps of the police department, his questioning gaze meeting Rachel's. She gave him a small nod, watching relief wash over his features.
Ice cream? Noah celested brightly, oblivious to the gravity of the morning's events. Rachel smiled, genuine warmth breaking through the tension she'd carried for years. Ice cream sounds perfect. As they walked toward the historic district's ice cream parlor, Rachel felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. For a moment, old fear gripped her. Another message, another threat. But when she checked the screen, it was a text from Detective Morales. Berkeley PD just confirmed Bennett called in sick 3 days ago. His current whereabouts unknown. Stay vigilant. We're sending a patrol car to your house now. Rachel slipped the phone back into her pocket without changing her expression. She wouldn't let fear dictate her actions anymore. Not with her son's hand in hers. Not with Ethan's steady presence beside her. Not even with the knowledge that danger might be closer than they thought. "Mom," she said quietly to Diane, who walked on Noah's other side, "I need you to take Noah to your hotel tonight, just until we're sure." Understanding dawned in Diane's eyes, along with something Rachel hadn't seen there in years, maternal protectiveness. "Of course." "What about you?" Diane asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Rachel watched Noah skip ahead to examine a storefront display, Ethan keeping pace with him. "I'm done running. Whatever happens next, I'm facing it on my terms." The historic streets of Alexandria stretched before them, centuries of stories embedded in every cobblestone and brick facade. Rachel's story was just one among thousands, but today it had finally been acknowledged, not just by the system that had failed her, but by the mother who had doubted her, and most importantly, by herself. As Noah ran back to her, ice cream-flavored decision made, Rachel knelt to his level, embracing him tightly. "Everything okay, Mommy?" he asked, his innocence both heartbreaking and fortifying. "Yes, sweetheart." And for the first time in years, she believed it might eventually be true. "Everything is going to be okay." That evening, after Diane had taken Noah to her hotel suite across town, a sleepover adventure complete with room service and a pool visit promised for the morning, Rachel and Ethan sat on their front porch swing, a police cruiser parked visibly at the curb. The summer twilight painted Alexandria in hues of lavender and gold, cicadas creating their evening symphony from the trees.
"You know what today means?" Ethan said, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. "No matter what happens with Kyle, you've changed things. For yourself, for those other women. That network you built, it's going to help more people than you know." Rachel leaned against him, allowing herself to feel the full weight of the day's events. The exhaustion, the validation, the cautious hope. "I used to think survival meant staying quiet," she said softly. "Now I understand it's about finding your voice and helping others find theirs." As night fell completely over their historic home, lights glowing warm from within, Rachel finally felt the foundations of real safety beginning to form, not built from silence and vigilance alone, but from truth, community, and the courage to stand firm against the shadows, even when they threatened to consume everything she'd built. This story reflects the journey so many women undertake, from isolation to solidarity, from silence to speaking truth. If Rachel's story has resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more narratives that shine light on the human experience in all its complexity. Remember that no one fights alone, and that your story, whatever it may be, deserves to be heard. Join our community where we explore the depths of resilience, healing, and the extraordinary courage found in ordinary lives.